Hi, I'm Trish. I'm an artist as part of an arts partnership called Instar with Nick Humphreys, and we are the appointed lead artists for the Tarporley Public Art Project. And today I wanted to share with you the journey we've gone through to date with the project and the inspiration with our plans going forward. I'm going to be sharing now a presentation. It won't be too long, and please do get in touch with the parish council or ourselves via the Facebook page if you have any questions about what we're doing, and we look forward to hopefully engaging you with the project as we progress. I will now share my screen. So, like I say, we are Instar. We're based in Nottingham. We're not in Tarporley, but we work nationally, and our work is all about creating deeper connections to the natural world through contemporary art. And we were selected on that basis with our background with those themes. And when we presented our ideas for Tarporley, it was very much around the natural world, the wonderful position where Tarporley is within the Cheshire landscape, and the connectivity, of course, to Sandwich Trail and various other local sort of features that are wildlife focused, and also, of course, the sort of the spirit and the natural habitat and the actual village itself and what that presents was very inspiring to us. As part of our project so far, we have taken part in many different site visits to the village. As part of our application process, we were taken on a tour and shown various features, and here is a collection of some of those images of those features. We were very interested to think where art could go, but also what is the heritage of the village as well as the natural heritage. So, you know, what's on, where do people live? You know, the new development of the new park, for example, thinking about green spots or even directional waymarkers. You know, the features such as the old fire station are very key to the high street. So we did a really nice range of different visits to connect ourselves with your village and what it could offer. Initially, we set about taking part in some consultation with the public, and we did that at Tarpfest last year. You may have seen us with our strange kind of waymarker board. You may have come to talk to us or even avoided us, who knows, but it was a really great day. We met lots and lots of local residents as well as visitors to the village, and we spoke a lot about public art, what we'd like to change, what we'd like as an opportunity. And again, you know, things like this really have inspired what we want to create. Additional to that, we went along to the primary school and we engaged with, I think, about 90 kids, and it was really brilliant. We had a fantastic time. We connected them to lots of things around different wildlife and habitats and nature local to pupils, and they created artwork for us, but also we got them involved with voting for species that they particularly liked, and what nature they loved and what they connected to. And we also engaged with teachers too, which was absolutely fantastic, and they really directly informed a lot of what we're thinking about for the project. Now, one thing that really came through with the consultation was that Tarporley, you are really up for trails. You love trails, and that can be very evidently seen when you've got your art trail map as part of Tarpfest, of which you can see here on the left, with loads of local artists, which is just wonderful, which we had the pleasure of coming along to and seeing, which was great. But also things such as your snowman trails and things like that. Now, one thing that is really apparent with a trail, rather than a singular artwork, is that it offers a sense of discovery and navigation, invites visitors and tourists and residents to go and explore the village, to not just see one piece. And it's not all eggs in one basket either. So it's thinking about what diversity can be brought through a trail. And that came through a lot with the consultation, that people were a bit nervous about just having one thing. And to explore the village and to see what it has to offer was something that people were really keen to achieve through the project, if at all possible. The other thing that we discussed with the project was about general general wildlife theme versus a species, for example. And so when we consulted, we asked a lot of questions around species and about landscape and what works and what doesn't. And generally the consensus is that wildlife as a whole is quite a broad theme, and that can sometimes take away from the energy of something like a trail, because it can be anything, can't it? It can be, you know, wildflowers and trees and birds. And so it becomes a little bit loose as an idea and a brand, perhaps. So we thought a long time around what would work and what wouldn't with this. And through that consultation, working with a particular species was where we were heading. So thinking about species and thinking about trail, and then how the village can now adopt and embrace themes around wildlife beyond these initial ideas. So from all of this consultation and from our research and our engagement with communities, particularly the children of the school, we have selected the species of the fox as the theme for the public art at Tarporley. And you may ask, well, why the fox? Well, there's lots of really great reasons why, and we'd like to share those with you now. So I'm just going to move my screen across in case that's in the way. So, for example, foxes appear prominently across literature and film, print, visual art, folklore. It really does capture the imagination of children particularly, but also all of us. You know, just looking at the picture here of the fantastic Mr. Fox, he's so cool. And, you know, that sort of character of the fox is really exciting for us to sort of embrace as a brief for artists. Also, there is a striking colour. You know, they're really bright, they're red, they've got certain tones, and that can be, again, embraced by artists, and it can offer a really great way for art to be interpreted. But also they have that sort of character, you know, they have that sort of wisdom and cunningness, but also they can position themselves in lots of different ways. So unlike, say, a badger, you can imagine a badger running along, or even, say, a daisy, you see a daisy, but they don't change that form much. So with a fox, you've got the leaps, the prowls, the sitting, the curling, you know, the sort of all of those wonderful different positions. And when you look at art and foxes in art, they appear quite prominently. So there's lots of flexibility with the fox. We also want to sort of, as we've just mentioned, just about the idea of identity for Tarporley and recognising the heritage of Tarporley and thinking about the spirit and culture of Tarporley. And this could be a really great species to really elevate that. And we're really excited by how this species can be very bright and vibrant for the village. It also is an iconic and positive sort of icon, really, that can be used to sort of represent the environmental attitudes and changing responses to nature and care for the natural world. Now, when we actually did our consultation with you on the Tarp Fest, we spoke to many people, and everyone really, really shared their love for Tarporley and the care for the environment. You know, it was just there throughout. You know, the children and the teachers at the school were just so in awe of caring for nature and wowed by nature, that, you know, this sort of changing attitude to the natural world and caring for it is very prominent where you live. Lots of new families who had moved in to Tarporley were saying they loved the idea of living here, and they were so delighted because it was just so beautiful. And the nature that surrounds them is just so vibrant and diverse, you know, so really wanting to sort of exemplify that with this species. Now, uniquely as well, what's great about the fox is you can find fox in everything, but, you know, there are opportunities for the village in terms of independent businesses. So, for example, here we've got confectionery. So we know we've got ginger and pickles, and there's the old fire station. There's plenty more other places that sell food that are really wonderful and really interesting and great in terms of the character and that spirit of Tarporley that we mentioned. But the fox can be made into confectionery. So we can have fox chocolates, we've got fox ginger biscuits. Even Starbucks have taken up the sort of, you know, the sort of cake pops and done a sort of a fox-shaped one there, and then we've got breads, and you can brand bread with foxes and all of those things. So it's really adaptable as a species in confectionaries, but also that can transfer into merchandise. So, you know, you can get your mugs, your teapots, your sort of glasses, your aprons, your tea towels, tote bags, you name it, pin badges. But it can also go into literature and books, T-shirts that you could be branded with the village. We could get postcards created, which could have even the sort of foxes within the trail, the artworks made into postcards that people can take away. Or there could be illustrative prints of foxes, of which there are many. You've got local artists, of course, who can produce work that could be sold. So there's so many wonderful things that this species particularly can be maximised. And there is so much out there that's fox themed that you can buy pretty much anything with a fox on. So it has real potential for those independents to really embrace. There could even be a pop-up shop for events and things and various things. So it could be really exciting. Also, the fox can inspire future cultural programming for the village. Now, as part of our role as lead artists, we're involved with thinking and supporting new ideas around that going forward for you. So there's things such as storytelling. The first image of the fox that we showed in a few slides back was of the Fox and the Star, which is a beautifully illustrated book by a UK author and illustrator. It's just stunning, and there are so many books. So there's things like storytelling and printmaking. We've got the lino and wood cutting, screen printing, but also there's puppetry and shadow puppetry, lanterns. You can have a lantern parade, and the fox can be the sort of the nugget, the seed, but then it can be expanded upon, and so the broader wildlife around Tarporley can be explored and shared through that programming. So it really does offer some great inspiration. So these are the sort of things we're thinking about of why this is a great theme. So now I'm going to just introduce you to some fox art and public art, just to sort of whet the appetite. Now, the first one we're showing you here is huge, and we don't expect this in Tarporley High Street. That would be rather crazy, but very fun. This is a very fun piece. Why it's got a plastic bag in his mouth, we don't know, but it's funny. It's obviously off to the shops. But again, it's just really fun. Scale won't be anything like this for what we are proposing. Our budgets are quite small, so we're just thinking quite intimate pieces. And this is an example. So here we've got a curled up fox. It's carved out of stone. It's could be something that we could think about with the sandstone. There could be something local to the sort of local landscapes, could inspire materials for us. But again, it's just a subtle little piece that's curled up. Really nice. This here is a piece of a fox art into a gate. Now, looking at existing infrastructure within the village is very important to us to think about where we want art to go. We don't want our artwork to impose and be something that doesn't quite fit in with the existing aesthetics of the village. We want to make sure it complements. So working with existing infrastructure could be a real great way forward. And this again has got that leaping sort of fox shape in that circle, which is really quite dynamic. And then again, you can see that sort of jumping fox in these textile pieces. Now, textiles are certainly an option. Outdoors, it could fade, but there are definitely options for textiles nonetheless. Here we've got printed textile and then a tapestry on the right. Two very different designs here, one very quite classic and then one very abstract. But you can sort of tell the fox is in there, can't you? So it's just interesting to see the different interpretive approaches that artists can take to this theme. Foxes here are in lino print and woodcut, and again, very simple silhouettes. Now, these could appear within artworks that are commissioned in that kind of style. It could also trigger workshops and various things linked to the theme of the fox. So again, illustration could appear within public art in some format, or certainly take inspiration. Now, we've got a weather vane, and we are thinking perhaps on top of buildings could be an option for the art, for one of the pieces. And weather vanes really do fit in beautifully with the aesthetic of the village, but actually anything on a rooftop we think it could be interesting. Here on the right is a huge one, of course. What it's made of, we don't know, but we did take a bit of inspiration from when we came along to the opening of the art exhibition at the Swan, at the Tart Fest. Many people mentioned that locally there's a dairy farm that carves out of straw bales and makes big sculptures. I think we have seen them in the past when we've driven by, when we visited you. So this just reminded us of that. Now, that just goes to show that perhaps themes could extend beyond the village and could be adopted by others, and they could inspire other opportunities. So we just thought we'd put that one in for that reason. Here are two foxes made out of glass and also mosaic. Now, the one on the left is very angular, but beautifully posed, both sitting foxes, aren't they? The one on the right is actually a local artist to us in Nottingham who's put wildlife mosaics up on our high street, and children are invited to go and find them and so forth, and they're just in corners and various hidden spaces. And this is a fox. And again, it's quite curvaceous mosaic, isn't it? It's got fluidity and movement in it. It's quite nice. So two very comparative ideas, but nice to see how artists interpret the fox in different ways. And these are all of steel. So we've got like a wire steel fox on the top right there. There's a sort of Corten, sort of very rustic fox in the landscape. And then we've got this mirrored angular contemporary fox. Probably if that was a different view, it would be more obviously a fox. But yeah, so there's just, again, very nice different ways that metals can be used to create art. So there's some examples. Now, just to give you an indication as to where we may put art up, authorities and authorization still need to be agreed. So these are just proposals at the moment. We're going to have 5 pieces of artworks installed within the high street of the village. Now, we've chosen the high street. This will be the first phase of the trail, and there will be ambitions to increase it beyond the high street. So we're looking at incremental opportunities for installations of new art. So this is the seed. So we thought it'd be good to do the high street because you can do a top and tail, and I'll explain that in a moment with some waymarkers. But also for those who are visiting Tarporley, they may not go too far beyond the high street. So we're thinking, let's start there first. But there are certainly some great opportunities beyond the high street, which we really want to hear your ideas about. So that's certainly on the plans for the next phase. So we're going to have one sort of central artwork, and that's going to be where this bench is next to the church. And you'll all know this is where the Tarporley sign is, the painted picture, and the best kept village signs, and various other planters and so forth. And we have a commissioned artist already appointed for this piece, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. So that's the main one, and that's the largest commission. Then we're going to have some micro commissions, sort of smaller, more intimate craft pieces or artworks for other locations. And these we're suggesting as being to replace some waymarkers. So those signposts, there's one at the top of the village up here, and then there's one at the bottom below the church here. And these are great because they direct you beyond the high street to the wilder landscape and to the sandstone ridge, and etc. So we were thinking they're quite good. Now, it might be just one of those or 2, depending on budgets and costs. But we're interested in artists who interpret what they can do to replace that signage in some way. We're also thinking about rooftops. So this is one at number 32. We're not suggesting this is the one, but it's one that certainly stood out to us as being a good vista. When you're walking up the high street, you can look up and see something. You know, we talked about the weather vane or perhaps a silhouetted piece up there. It's something that you might have an animal or the fox walking along or leaping or doing something of that ilk. What material, we don't know. Again, you know, permissions have to be granted first, and we need to get everyone on board. But there are a number of rooftops we could consider. But it's nice to have artwork that isn't all on one eye level. So it's nice to look up, look down and around. So we're encouraging visitors to seek them out and to enjoy and look at the infrastructure and the buildings and the heritage of the village as they walk. And so saying that, there is a manhole cover that's just near the large chestnut tree in the centre, just outside Ginger and Pickles, around that area where there's been that development. And so there's some manhole cover designs, and you can get them created specifically for art. Now we'll show some examples of that in a moment, but that's nice because it can be looked down on, and there's interactive elements to that that's really interesting. So the kind of little nooks and seeks and discoveries that we're aiming for. And then finally, across the high street, there are vacant shop sign brackets that are above shops. So they're sort of like the cast iron brackets that used to have shop signs on. And on your high street, you have actually got a sign that's been made by a blacksmith. The blacksmith is no longer there, but the sign still is. And we invite you, if you've not noticed it, to look for it because it's really beautiful. And we took a lot of inspiration from that. Now, what's great about these is that there's a whole host of different options for them. They could be a steel sheet, flat piece of art that's commissioned, or it could be something that's 3-dimensional. It could be something that's fabric and temporary. And there's a number of them. So we're thinking that would be really interesting to adopt and to encourage that looking around and seeing buildings and looking for the art in different levels. So here we have a picture of another site visit we did. So we've got Gordon, who's on the parish council, and there's Nick, who I work with within Star, our dog Drift. But then there's in the middle is Martin Smith. Now he's the artist we have commissioned for that artwork to go where they're sitting. Now Martin is a kinetic artist. That means his work moves. Now his work can be motorized, but a lot of his work is actually moved with the elements. And we think this is a really exciting opportunity for Tarporley to have one of his pieces. So we'll just share a few of his examples of his work now. His name is Martin Smith. He's based in Huddersfield, and this is an example of his trees that he creates, and they have these little sort of paddles on them that replicate the leaves, and they move around with the sound and with the wind. And they're really beautiful, and they create a nice framework. Now, it's very likely that Martin may go down the tree route, we don't know at the moment, but obviously incorporating the fox into that. So it will be a standalone piece that will go into the high street. We think it's really in keeping his style with the aesthetic of the village high street, and it will just be a real bonus. It'll be beautiful. Now, how Martin works is that he will create some maquettes, some mini designs that he will weld up and create, and we'll share them with you as we progress the design. And there'll be public open opportunities to engage with that process. And he really does connect with a community when he produces his work. So we're really excited about working with him. Now, just to share those other micro commissions, of which there's 4. They looking at the manhole covers you can see on the left. Ignore that sort of there's the one that's like, I don't know, it's just stone, isn't it? But the ones around it, you can see there are very different designs, and they are really great in terms of a nice aesthetic. And you know, it reminds us a little bit of the sort of, you know, if you go to Paris and you see the Art Nouveau, you know, in the subway, you know, in the sort of train stations, there's just something really beautiful about design here. So we're really excited to see what that will present. And with those, you can also do rubbings and printing from them, and that's sort of like a new sort of fashion that's happening at the moment, a new trend, and it's really nice to do. So there could be some really nice engagement elements with that. We've got one up here in the centre, which is of a hanging bracket, you know, the sort of shop sign. It's got a grasshopper on it there. That's 3-dimensional, but again, thinking, you know, what could be there? There are some contemporary shop signage opportunities, but of course, there's so many options an artist can respond to fox in so many different ways with it. So, you know, that's just to give you an example of that. The fox on the right is actually a real fox, but what we've shown here is the rooftop idea. This is actually a fox that's fallen asleep on a skylight, but it just reminds us of a gargoyle, you know, and it's just interesting to think what on a rooftop could happen, you know, in terms of art. So we just thought we'd put that nice sleeping fox up there, just to sort of share the idea of physicality when you look up at a fox, I guess. And then here we've got a waymarker that's been CNC cut. That's like a sort of a digital cutting process into wood that sort of engraves digitally into wood, which is quite commonly used. And it's been artistically drawn. So thinking about, you know, visual artists could adopt that brief and create a waymarker that's got something that's CNC cut. They can go for an actual sculpture and think very differently, but it's just to give you an idea that there's adaptability with those briefs to think about how you can create something that's got a visual element within it. So they're just examples of the different types of micro commissions. The micro commissions will be publicly promoted. Myself and Nick, we will be creating the manhole cover. That will be us. But the other 3 will be open to the wider creative community of Cheshire. So if you are an artist and you hear this and you'd like to submit an idea, we'd really love to hear from you. The information will be publicised widely, so you will get to find out about the opportunities. They are of the value of £2,000 each, and that includes all production and artist time. So, you know, if you're interested, we'd really like to hear from you. And that's the end of the presentation. So just want to say thank you for listening. And like I say, you can get in touch with us. Our website is www.we-are.org. instar, instar.co.uk. You can also find us on Facebook, We Are Instar. And you can also contact us via the Tarporley Facebook page and leave a message. Hopefully this will go up there and on the website. So through those networks, we do hope you can get in touch with us, and we'd love to hear from you. And yes, we will be in touch soon with updates. Thank you very much.